welcome back to She Plays the Podcast. I am joined today by Jessica Clinton, Oakland Soul SC's first ever head coach. Long list of things in the sports world that we'll get to, but Jessica, thanks so much for joining the podcast today.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, and for anyone watching this on YouTube, you can see that awesome logo behind Jessica. Anyone who's listening to this, the Oakland Roots, Oakland Soul, it's a really cool organization that I can't wait to chat about. But real quick, let's just talk. So you played sports in school, right? You played college soccer, and how's it been? I guess, well, how was that? I guess we'll start with that. How was it being a college athlete?
It was great. My experience was great, right? Like I had a fantastic head coach. I mean, as a college athlete, your life is a roller coaster, but I enjoyed my overall experience so much so, right, that I wanted to figure out how to get into college coaching. So I've only played one sport in my life, and it's been soccer. So couldn't really see anything outside of it.
That's awesome. And Boston University, right, is your alma mater?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so were you there in the time of the Boston Breakers back in the day, hoping to see the new edition come back?
Well, I was there back in WUSA days. So I was a junior going into my senior year when the Boston Breakers were training and playing their games at BU.
Amazing.
So I was able to train with them this summer leading into my senior year. And probably one of the best things that happened within my life as far as playing. I was never good enough to play professionally, but like to have that opportunity to play with pros was unbelievable.
That's awesome. What a cool experience.
Yeah.
So was it wanting to stay connected with the sport, or was there a certain coach or coaches that really had an impact on you that led you to take that path?
I think I've been really lucky for the majority of my youth playing and even college playing career. I've had some really fantastic coaches. I've had some not fantastic. However, it's the group of really fantastic coaches that I've had that drove me to be better. And then when I came out of college, I went into what I call the real world, because my life in soccer and sports is not real whatsoever, right? It's a dream. But I was working for Marriott for about 2.5, 3 years, and in that world, and I just didn't love it enough. So figured out at that point in my early midlife crisis, I needed to figure out what my passion was, and I knew it. So I was figuring out how to get back into sports.
I love that. And, I don't think I've ever asked this question of a coach that we've interviewed, but you just said like your real world as a coach is not like the real world. I guess what is a week in the life, I guess, of a coach? And I'm sure that off season, during season is different, but I'm sure the timeline is different than like a regular 9 to 5, 8 to 5, whatever the job world is like today.
I mean, I'm sure people, right, hopefully you have your benefits and your 401k, and like there are some aspects that make it real world. But I suppose why I don't really call it the real world is, I mean, this opportunity that I have with the Soul is a dream, right? It's a startup for a women's professional team. So for me as a young player, I wanted to be a professional player, but just not at that level. And right now, from a coaching standpoint, like I've broken into that piece. Doesn't mean I'm going to stay here, right? I have to prove myself, but like it is a dream. I don't remember as a kid, like having a dream to be a restaurant manager, right? So, but that was my major. So going back and forth between those worlds is different, right? Working in the service industry was not a 9 to 5. It was probably similar hours. But what does my week look like as a coach? I think right now, my days are very different than when I was a college coach.
Okay.
Right. My college coaching days, I didn't shut off my phone. Players had access to me all the time. I was building my schedule around recruiting and recruiting players within my own system and everything else, where, right, as a college coach, you're running your own small business. So like that was always going, whether it was fundraising or meetings, right, on the road, there was little to no downtime. In the professional world, there probably is a little bit more balance, although the stakes are just as high. But when I was in the real world, I could shut off my phone and not worry about the rest that was around, right? Like employees were adults. In this case, I'm potentially working with youth players or college players that aren't at that, can live on their own and sustain their own, kind of life. So it's a little bit different in a balancing act, but I would say that the pressure in the coaching world, especially at the college and pro piece, like there is a stress level to it. I wasn't stressed, running a restaurant, so to speak. I could go to sleep at night without a problem. So
that's true.
That's the big difference for me.
Yeah. Not only, team performance, but like managing X amount, over 20 players on a team. Yeah, there's a lot of that. I'm curious too, the college where you, like you said, you're running your own small business, you have a lot of different hats you have to wear. Translating that to the pro world, I guess I've just always been curious too, and it might differ by organization, but is the coach a part of recruitment, or is there another division that really like looks for player acquisition or like who we should look out for and then it consults the coach?
So right now with the Soul, it's myself, it's Jordan, the technical director, and it's Eric Yamamoto, who's the VP of soccer, right? Those are the three main players when it comes to like putting together a team, because I'm from the East Coast, right? And these are West Coast guys, and it's a West Coast team, so their connections are very different. But at some point, right, when I look at the roots, still Jordan and Yamo are involved, but then there's another individual in there that works with player acquisitions and working with managers and agents. So it becomes another kind of small department. On the Soul side, that's not there yet, potentially next year when they go pro. But for right now, right, we don't have that department. College, it's your staff members, right? You're recruiting staff members that right now, I think they might have increased it to 4 staff members can recruit. Like that's it, but you're wearing every other hat besides recruiting.
Yeah, well, and that makes sense. I would think on a pro level too, that maybe the coach just gets to focus a little bit more on coaching and that be their main worry or concern. So that's awesome. I'm curious, what are the bits of the job that you really love?
I'm getting into it, right? I'm only a month in and we haven't trained yet. So Saturday we start our first training session and then we'll go into the season. So my first part of what I love is the potential of the building of the team and the players that are interested. And then on top of that, how the organization is supporting the women's team. Even though it's an amateur team, it is being treated for the most part like our men's first team. So it's a pro thought process without paying the players. So like our games, they're selling tickets. There's going to be like food trucks and like advertisements and things like that. And we're having a jersey launch or like a jersey drop date come in, right? So like our club and organization is being, or our program with the Soul is being treated like a pro team, which is probably like the most fun. I don't have to, at the college level, deal with 22 other sports potentially, right? We're just a football club.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, all the other collegiate offerings that they have and competing with tickets. Yeah, that's true. When it is, what is happening in Oakland is something that's unique. Could you speak a little bit to the uniqueness of the club and what's going on?
Yeah, so it prides itself in being a purpose-driven club, right? And harnessing the magic of Oakland, which is unique in itself. But the purpose-driven club, there's only a few across the world, right? And the focus is like, how do they incorporate the community into the football club? And that's a big part of it. And you see also like there is a community group and we have a chief purpose officer, which doesn't really exist really in the football world. We're seeing it more when it comes to other companies, but so there's that, and there's a lot of community relations that go along with that, and the organization piece, and just kind of giving back to the city of Oakland while also having Oakland feel like this is their team and it's representative of the diversity within the men's programs and what you see there, or the diversity in what we'll put out within the women's programs, right? We want it to be able to, like, when the fans come or the little girls and boys come to watch games, we want them to be able to say, that could be me someday. They're not just watching, you know, some professional player, they're watching someone that looks like them, right? And that's a big piece to kind of the thought process besides in building the team.
I love that. And I think it's something that's so unique in sports, but even this to the nth degree, right? But that you are the community. There's such a big part. I mean, that's what I love, that Wrexham documentary that's been going on, you know, and like, especially like British soccer, it is in their blood. Like, it is literally the thing that they will sacrifice money for other things for, to have tickets to go to the game.
Yeah.
And so like, yeah, creating that passion, and like, there's pride. There's so much pride in that crest. You know, I get emotional when I see players like tap the crest on their jersey, and it's like, this is for you. That is really cool to be a part of something like that.
It's amazing. And I'm not from here, but I've seen how people are really passionate about being from here, right? So that is a really fun part of, like, okay, the work that I do is not just for the football club, but it is a matter of like putting a really great product out for the people of Oakland and the surrounding areas too, right? Of course. But that's a big part of it. By the way, Wrexham has a women's side. So if you, right, like, that's up and coming too. So I'm happy to see that they're bringing football to this like fun stage of what the men's team is doing, but now they're bringing it to the women's side. So I give the investors for Wrexham a big kudos for that.
Yeah, I've been waiting for the first mention of women's, and I think I saw it just recently that they were like, oh yeah, catch this team on this channel. Yeah, I think that would be one, smart, right? We know it's smart business. And two, to see that on an international scale, the attention that's been given to maybe throw some of the women's team in the focus would be huge. I'd love to see it. So yeah, so that's cool. So you've got like an outsider's perspective. What's the move been like? How's it been? Yeah, like moving across the country and like settling into this new city.
Yeah, it's been easy, minus the, right, I had the movers come pick up my stuff and they're the ones who drove it cross country. So like, from that perspective, that's the easiest part. And it took about 3 weeks for my stuff really to be delivered, because coming across the country and the weather and the snow, they had to take a different route. But I also drove cross country and I thought that was really fun. But I think got in on a Friday, like I drove in, got to my apartment on a Friday, and the next day, Saturday, I was at the facility. So, and then Sunday, I think it was Sunday, then I did like the media day. So that was probably the hardest part of my job, was actually going through like the media series. Because as a coach, I hate doing that part. I'm always hyping up the players to go do it. I'm like, no, do it this way, this. And I'm like, oh my God, I have to do this. But then it was just go from the very beginning of when I got here, which was the thought process from the very beginning. But the move out here and the people are so nice, and so welcoming and so helpful. So that's been an easy shift going from coast to coast.
That's awesome. Well, and I'm trying to think, and sorry, I should have done more research on this before, but amateur or pro, there's not a ton in the Oakland area that's women's sports. Is that correct?
That's correct. So the NorCal region, or the new NorCal league that we'll play in, right, is a pretty storied. They have like some really historical teams within it. Like Cal Storm was the place before, you know, these professional leagues on the women's side came about. You had the national teamers going to play for Cal Storm. And then you had SF Glens. So there are women's teams like in and around the San Francisco area, right, that make up this league. Marin, Stockton, us, Pleasanton. So there's like a group. But from, I think, with the USL making this like a high-end amateur league and then putting out the women's pro league, is creating more visibility within the region. And then the NWSL, right, has rights to a San Francisco team for the future. So that's nice. You'll have what will be considered like a tier 1 at some point. And then just like we have NWSL and MLS, then we'll have the leagues that filter under to create a pyramid system. And I think based off of the college programs in this area, I don't like to use the word deserve very often, but based off of the programs in the area and the known talent from the area, they deserve it.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And I mean, I think too, you're right. I think there probably is some college momentum there in the area for sure, the college women's sports, but it's cool to be a part of bringing this new wave, this like introduction to women's sports. Y'all are a part of that. That's amazing. That's really a cool opportunity. Yeah,
I'm pumped for it. Yeah.
Very cool. Maybe controversial question, but would you love to see the like promotion relegation system come to the US in any way?
I would. It did exist at one point, not maybe from the professional ranks, but growing up playing sports on Long Island. So I played in a Long Island Junior Soccer League. Like it was promotion relegation as far as like where you were within your age group. So right, if you would work your way up to the first division, and if you were at the bottom of the group, like that, I kind of miss those days, to be fair. Right. I think college sports is a little bit different based off of like rights and entertainment and things like that. But I love a place where you have to work to earn something. And in a country where you can buy your way into things right now, like it's tough.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and anyone listening, so promotion relegation is where you would have, like we were talking, a tier 1 league. The last team in that league would get relegated to a tier 2 league for the next year. And like the top team from tier 2 would get promoted up to tier 1. And I don't know. I do think there's something really, really cool about it. And I feel like sadly, even last season, we had some pretty underperforming teams in the tier 1 league that I'm like, is there a way? Is there enough money yet to do it for women's soccer? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen it on the men's side, right?
Yeah.
Like I think I could go back to when I was a kid and my dad and my club coach used to bring us to watch men's not college league, but local enough where we were going to watch, and it was intense and it was fun, but it was well organized, right? And I think that there's a place where does it make sense for parity reasons that you have teams matched up against teams that are financially in the same space and like the same support? Yes, I think that makes sense, right? But would I love to see that competition start to breed different things? Absolutely, right? That's the competitor in me. But from a financial standpoint, what happens if you push a League 2 team into League 1 and your salary caps are different? You know, it's different than the European model, right? There's no salary caps. Right now, there's a floor and a cap depending on what league you're in. So yeah, the competition side says promotion relegation. Perhaps the smarter people in the room, the investors, might say otherwise.
Yeah. No, I mean, and sorry if we got a little off track. I just think it's really fascinating, and even like as you're, building part of the pipeline, it's just a really interesting concept. But yeah,
I think the youth model. I mean, not to go off on the tangent, but I do think the youth model could use that part.
Sure. Yeah, that's true.
It's so saturated in markets with all these different leagues. If you start to put the best with the best, I think you start fighting for something. So, but that's changed over the last 20 years where the markets have been so saturated and the best don't play with one another as consistent as they should.
Wow. Well, opportunity alert. Anyone listening that wants to try to tackle that one. That's a great idea. Okay, but just to wrap up, I'd love to hear. So first season for Oakland Soul SC coming up. I think the first home game is May 13th, I believe.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah. So I know there's a lot to get excited about. What's one thing that you're like, oh my gosh, we have to do this before then. But then one thing that you're just like, oh, I can't wait for this.
I can't wait to see the fans at the facility, right? Like that is really exciting. The other part is just like building a team, right?
Yeah.
What will it look like? And it's going to change based off of where we are. We have youth players, we'll have college players. When they're done with their season, they'll filter in. And then we have what we're calling the over 23 group. And some of them are retired former like professional players, right? So it's bringing those three groups together, and like it'll change almost every game or every week, depending on where they are within their seasons with their club teams, where they are within their bodies, right? Some of the older players might be like, I need a day off. And I would be like, I hear you. Right. And the college players might be doing college things like taking a vacation, or they have to go to class, or they have midterms. So, I'm going to be working with 3 different groups. So that probably is like the ever-changing landscape I'm not overly excited about, is who's in and who's out given the day. But when we step on the field, I know it's going to be a really fun group.
That's awesome. I mean, that is a lot of logistical planning. Yeah. That's a lot of spreadsheets or diagrams on the wall. Yeah. Yeah.
Which I love
A good
already,
challenge.
so
Yeah. A
I
good
love it.
challenge
Yeah.
for sure. Oh, that's fantastic. Well, yeah. So how can folks watch or, go to games, and how can they follow Oakland Soul?
Yeah. So I can't say anything yet about how they can watch besides
Okay.
seeing us live,
Okay.
right? I have to wait for our marketing and PR group to drop that
Sure.
information. So
Sure.
I can't say that yet. But you can buy tickets. You can be a season ticket holder. You can sit field level with us. So you can buy those tickets. We're one of the few teams in the league that are selling tickets.
Awesome.
Which is pretty fun, which we have season ticket holders, which is pretty amazing. But you can follow us on social media, right? Oakland Roots, Oakland Souls. You can follow me, right, at Jess Clinton Soccer, and I post everything Oakland Soul, Oakland Roots anyway. But yeah, just wait and keep following us on all platforms of social media.
Yeah. And we'll put all those links in the show notes. If there is some announcement that gets dropped before this episode is live, we'll have the info in the show notes. And maybe I'll hop on and do a quick update. But I'm so excited for what y'all are building. I'm so excited for the first season. I mean, it's landmark. It is. I hope people don't forget to remember that there are still trailblazing moments happening all the time in women's sports, and you are a part of one. You are the start of a team and an organization that is so cool. So best of luck this whole season. It's going to be really fun to watch.
Yeah, I'm really excited. And every time someone reminds me of that, I get nervous again. I'm like, oh shoot, history, come back to history. It's
There's
the start of something fun. So
yeah,
I'm sure nerves involved.
There's nerves.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it takes added effort to cut the trail, right? Like there's no denying that it can be tricky and exhausting, but it is worth it. And in 20 years,
totally,
someone will be like, oh my gosh, when this thing started, who was a part of that?
Maybe I'll still be here if I'm lucky enough. Maybe I'll still be here.
Yeah, love it. Well, thank you again for coming on the podcast, and best of luck this season.
Thank you so much.